Alright, welcome to my new video. As promised last time, in this video I will talk about how I became #1 bingo player. This however only occurred on unfunded perk and is not exactly meaningful. Despite this, it's a pretty good clickbait and technically not false. So, the story began on unfunded perk about 3 weeks ago during the last session of the Rift testing. In this session of testing they added Vampire Slayer, which was quite exciting for some people because it looks very cool, at least from what I can tell from the time-use video, which is only footage of it I have. What was interesting about this testing that there was an active bingo event. The reason this was interesting is because it's on alpha network, so there's no reason for it to even exist. Despite this, I decided to create a new profile, and using the Centauri NPC that's available to everyone on alpha network, I give myself max skills and max collections with just few buttons. After this, I decided to give myself some reasonable amount of coins, which I used to quickly turn into Skyblock XP by buying some accessories around the hub, as well as maxing out Jacobus, which was an interesting way to spend a few minutes of my life for quite a lot of Skyblock XP, and I'm very much excited to do this on my main profile. After this, I decided to check my position on the Skyblock level leaderboard, and I saw that I was currently number 4. This was quite exciting. So at this point I was determined to become #1. Considering how much time I spent to this game, I have the general idea of how to get Skyblock XP, so I decided to run down everything I thought of, which, considering the very limited amount of content available on Alpha Network, would be interesting. The reason this would become complicated is that on Alpha Network only few islands were open at the time. These items included a private island, garden, hub, dungeon hub, dungeons, Crimson Isle, and of course the Rift. Because of this, I did not have access to several items, because on bingo profile you do not have access to bazaar or trading to other players, which means I had to become creative with gaining items to craft items that would help me get Skyblock XP. One of the first things I did was that I did Slayer. Using a Centauri NPC, I managed to give myself superior dragon armor, aspect of the dragons, and then managed to max those items using the same NPC. Using this setup, I decided to do some Slayer, because killing unique Slayer bosses as well as reaching Slayer levels gives quite a lot of Skyblock XP. Unfortunately, I was locked on the Revenant Slayer because Spider Slayer was on an island that was not available, and Sven Slayer would require Spider Slayer progress. Due to this, I decided to go as far as getting level 5 in the Revenant Slayer before moving out to something else. I quickly remembered the Anita NPC, with whom you can trade medals from Jacob content and Jacob tickets to buy various items. Those, one of the more interesting things you can buy there is you can increase your farming level cap. What the Centauri NPC did was it only gave you the skill experience you would need to max out the skills, but it did not give you the cap you need. So similar to how I'm now kept on farming level 51, on Alpha Network I was capped on farming level 50. Due to this, I decided to contribute in some events to gain some gold medals to trade with Anita, because getting levels after level 50 would give 30 Skyblock experience, which is quite a large sum. What was funny about this is that I could just talk to Centauri NPC again and just click the button, and it would complete all the collections again and again and again, and this would count as if I have collected those materials for myself, and therefore it counted for the Jacob contents. Unfortunately, many people knew about this, so I had to go to quite large sums to get the gold medal. But fortunately, every gold medal I have received has given me Skyblock XP, which meant that my experience kept on right. After the Jacob content, I started running out of ideas, so I decided to go to Crimson Isle to remind myself. There I was reminded of dojo and trophy fishing, neither of which was I particularly excited to do, but I did not have a lot of chance because I was currently second on the leaderboard and I had no idea how far ahead was the first person. So I got myself blue belt, which gave me like almost 2 Skyblock levels, and then decided to do some trophy fishing. This was pretty boring because I had to use start lever until I remembered that I have max collection and I can dupe the magma fish I have. So I decided to dupe the magma fish, craft myself magma rod, and then proceed to upgrade it all the way to Hellfire with very great attributes. Unfortunately, I didn't have the hunter armor, which meant that I had 50% secret chance at any time, which unfortunately does not give me Skyblock XP, and therefore was not very helpful. I was pretty desperately trying to figure out ways to get some items that I normally couldn't because I couldn't go to mining islands. Those items included lapis for stuff like experience artifact or emerald for the accessories you have in that collection, as well as emerald blade, because if you have unlimited money, emerald blade is very good and it would pretty much triple my damage when compared to Aspect of the Dragons. Unfortunately, I failed to find a way to get lapis or emeralds, but having my deep knowledge of Skyblock, I found other items I could get. I remembered that Cadanites exist and they are small zombie pigmen which ride on chickens. I thought that they might perhaps lay an egg, and if I managed to get myself an egg, I could craft pets. And this was a good thing, because pet score gives free Skyblock XP per, which means for every legendary pet I managed to get, I would have 15 Skyblock experience. So I waited for a bit at Cadanites and managed to find an egg. I duped it, created a super enchanted egg, and using all the resources I could, I crafted various pets you can see on your screen now. While you're looking at my pets, you might notice that I have a spirit pet, and you might wonder how did I manage to get spirit pet on my own. The answer to that is that I didn't. I wasn't on my own. There were two particular people whose name you can see on your screen now, who decided to help me on my goal to achieve the #1 spot on the leaderboard. These two people were nice enough to carry me in dungeons to get Skyblock XP from both class levels, floor completions and catacomb levels. On top of that, Centauri made my armor ancient despite the fact I did not have access to the Reforged Stone, and so each catacombs level would give me 4 critical damage on the full set, which was quite nice. While I was getting carried on 4-4, I managed to somehow get epic spirit pet, which was incredible and was quite helpful. I doubt anyone who else competing with me for the first spot had it, so that was very fortunate. One of those two people also decided to carry me on floor 2 for Scarf Studies, which I could quickly turn into Grimoire for using the Centauri NPC duping feature. Speaking of the accessories I have, this is the fullest of accessories I see. You might notice a piggy bank. The way I managed to get a piggy bank was quite interesting, because you do not have access to pigs. How did I manage to get a pork chop from which I could craft it? This is another big brain moment I had. The way was quite simple. Using my very reasonable hellfire rod, I fished at the fisherman hut for clay. I used the clay to craft farmer's rod and fished with the farmer's rod until I had myself a chicken, which I killed for feather artifact, and pork chop, which I used for both pigman pet, and piggy bank. So this was a good decision, despite it taking quite a while. Another notable big brain moment I had was that I remembered that there is one particular spot where you have spiders, and no, dungeons do not count because you cannot spawn slayers in dungeons. But there's one more spot where you can find spiders. After awkwardly killing burning spiders on Crimson Isle, I managed to spawn several tiers of Tarantula Bloodfather. Using this layer I managed to unlock Sven Slayer, and all of that gave me quite a lot of Skyblock XP from Slayers. Another less entertaining thing I did was that I managed to go through all the islands and get every single fair soul on them. This was pretty boring and not sure if it had very high significance, but it counted. Moving around Crimson Isle with only Aspect of the End without any transmission tuners was interesting experience, but I did it nonetheless. Another thing that comes to mind that I did was I crafted minions. I did not craft all the minions I could, but a lot of them. There were 2 more features which would have helped me get Skyblock XP, but unfortunately those were for some reason unavailable. First of which was Museum, which is disabled on all bingo profiles, and the second thing was Dark Auction, which just didn't seem to happen on Alpha Network unless I was missing something. which I could have. Another interesting accessories to obtain were Fire Talisman and Lava Talisman. Since the Alchemist NPC only sells Blaze Powder and you need enchanted Blaze Powder, which is crafted from Blaze Rods, to obtain Fire Talisman. So naturally I went to Crimson Isle, and using my very mediocre setup I managed... Excuse you. Anyways, so using my pretty awkward setup on Crimson Isle, I managed to kill a Blaze to get Blaze Rod, and it duped that all the way to the Fire Talisman, as well as I managed to craft myself a Blaze Pet. I later used Blaze Pet's bonus to all stats to gain Pet Luck, which helped me craft all the other pets to legendary rarity faster than it normally would have. Alright, this is unrelated, but I've just been informed that several the NPCs of admins, except Minikloon, for some reason, have had their names renamed to Bobby Joe, Jim Bob, and Billy Joe for no apparent reason. I'm not sure if it's a mod doing tricks on me or if I'm just missing a joke, but I have no idea why this is happening. Anyways, back on topic. Another thing I did on Unfunded Work was that I used my infinite wealth to purchase some bank upgrades, which also gave me some Skyblock XP. Unfortunately, I was stuck on the gold account because all the others required museum, which, as established, was unfortunately closed. Alright, as I think this is everything from this journey, so I will just mention that at the end I had over 8 hours of playtime. Was it worth it? Arguable, but I hope you very much liked this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you some other time. So yeah.